Have you ever noticed this? The smartest person in the room is rarely the one talking the loudest. It's the one asking the questions. Arguments trigger ego, but questions bypass ego and go straight to the truth. Socrates never won by overpowering anyone. He won by guiding them to defeat their own arguments. A statement can be wrong. A genuine question cannot. And once you master this, you stop fighting people and start helping them see what they couldn't see before. Now let's begin with the first Socratic strike, the question that exposes the foundation of every belief. This is the Socratic question that quietly dismantles almost every argument. How do you know that's true? It sounds simple, almost too simple. But this question is a mirror, and most people aren't ready to look into it. When you ask someone how they know, you force them to examine the origin of their belief. And the truth is, most beliefs aren't built on facts. They're built on repetition, emotion, habit, or social pressure. People know something is true because they heard it somewhere. Everyone says it. It feels right. They've always believed it. It matches their fears or hopes. But none of that is proof. It's just familiarity dressed up as truth. The moment you ask this question, you interrupt the autopilot of certainty. Suddenly, the person has to slow down. They have to think. They have to inspect the foundation they've been standing on. And often, that foundation turns out to be sand. Socrates understood something extremely powerful. People rarely examine their beliefs until someone gently forces them to. Not with aggression, not with humiliation, but with curiosity. This question does something even more profound. It separates truth from identity. Because when people argue, they aren't defending facts. They're defending the version of themselves built around those facts. But when you ask, how do you know that's true? You shift the conversation from ego to reasoning, from emotion to clarity, from certainty to discovery. And the mind suddenly becomes flexible again. A powerful variation of this question is, what would have to be true for your statement to be false? This flips their logic upside down. It forces them to explore the opposite direction, to see cracks they didn't know existed. People don't like being proven wrong, but they don't mind proving themselves wrong. This is why the Socratic method works. You're not fighting them, you're guiding them. Now that we've exposed the foundation of beliefs, let's peel back the next layer. The hidden assumptions people don't even know they're making. If the first Socratic question cracks the surface, this one digs straight into the foundation. What are you assuming? Most arguments don't fall apart because of big mistakes. They fall apart because of the hidden assumptions people never look at. Assumptions buried so deep that even the person speaking doesn't know they're there. Every belief has a scaffolding. Every conclusion sits on top of a stack of unspoken truths. And most of those truths dissolve the moment they're exposed to light. For example, someone says, college guarantees success. But what are they assuming? They're assuming everyone defines success the same way. They're assuming the job market stays stable. They're assuming the world still rewards credentials over skill. They're assuming the past predicts the future. Once you ask them to name their assumptions, the argument becomes shaky. Because now they have to defend not just their conclusion, but the entire mental architecture holding it up. Another example. My partner didn't text back, so they must be losing interest. What assumptions are hidden here? That they always should be available, that their behavior reflects their feelings, that nothing else could possibly be happening in their day. Most emotional suffering comes not from reality, but from the assumptions we attach to reality. Seneca said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." Assumptions are imagination, the mind filling in blanks with fear, ego, or insecurity. When you ask, "What are you assuming?" you force the person to slow down, to unstack their thoughts, to see the invisible leaps their mind is taking. This question does something even deeper. It exposes whether their argument is based on logic or on a story they're telling themselves. If they can list their assumptions clearly, the conversation opens. If they can't, the argument collapses under its own weight. And here's the twist. You can use this question on yourself. Whenever you feel angry, anxious, jealous, or offended, pause and ask, "What am I assuming right now?" You'll discover that most emotional pain isn't truth, it's projection. Once the hidden assumptions are exposed, there's only one direction left to go. Can this person actually change their mind? Or are they committed to staying the same no matter what? That brings us straight into the next Socratic strike. The question that reveals whether someone is thinking or merely defending a belief they'll never let go of. There is a quiet kind of strength in asking a question that most people never dare to consider. When someone is locked into a belief, when their ego is fully invested in being right, this single question slips under all their defenses and speaks directly to their rational mind. What evidence would change your mind? Notice what happens when you ask this. You're not attacking. You're not challenging their identity. You're not trying to win. You're inviting them to define the conditions under which they would reconsider their position. And when someone can't define those conditions, the conversation exposes itself for what it is. Not a search for truth, but a struggle for dominance. This question is profoundly Stoic because it forces both sides to face reality instead of ego. Marcus Aurelius wrote that we must give ourselves to truth, not to pride. And truth demands criteria. If someone cannot tell you what evidence would shift their thinking, then they're not searching for truth. They're protecting a belief. But here's the real power. Most people, when asked this question, suddenly step out of emotional mode and into analytical mode. You interrupt the emotional spiral. You shift them from fighting to thinking. Instead of defending themselves, they begin defining what truth would even look like to them. And once they do that, the conversation becomes grounded, measurable, real. You create a path forward, something arguments almost never do. But this question also protects you. If you can answer it, if you know which evidence would make you change your mind, you practice intellectual humility, the quiet Stoic confidence that comes from knowing you are not chained to your opinions, you're chained to truth. So the next time someone argues not to understand, but to dominate, take a breath. Stay calm. Step back from the noise and simply ask, what evidence would change your mind? It's not a trap. It's not aggression. It's an invitation. The same invitation Stoic thinkers use to cut through illusions and get to the heart of reality. And speaking of cutting through illusions, let's move to the next tool. A question that quietly exposes the difference between what someone believes and what they can actually prove. Now let's go deeper into the fourth question, one that reveals the truth people often hide even from themselves. This question is powerful because it forces the mind to do something uncomfortable but liberating. Step outside itself. When emotions run high, people argue from instinct, pride, and the desire to win. But the moment you ask, what would someone who disagrees with you say? The conversation shifts from confrontation to reflection. Why? Because now they must adopt another perspective, even if only for a moment. This is a subtle but deeply Stoic move. Epictetus taught that the opinions of others, the reactions of others, and even the disagreements of others are all neutral. What matters is whether we respond with clarity or with ego. By asking this question, you gently pull the other person out of their ego and into a broader view of reality. They have to pause. They have to imagine. They have to acknowledge that their belief is not the only belief. And without realizing it, they begin doing something extremely difficult during conflict, thinking instead of reacting. This question also reveals blind spots. When someone tries to articulate what the opposing side might say, they often expose the weaknesses in their own argument. They may realize mid-sentence that the counter-argument is stronger, more logical, or more grounded than they expected. Now, the debate isn't about proving who's superior. It's about understanding the full picture. But here's the deeper wisdom behind this question. If a person cannot describe the opposing viewpoint fairly, then they don't understand the issue well enough to defend their own stance. This is a principle echoed by philosophers, psychologists, and great communicators. If you can't explain the other side, you haven't earned your side. So when you ask this question, you're not cornering them. You're guiding them toward intellectual honesty. You're giving them a bridge out of rigid thinking. And this works on you too. If you can answer it, you'll find your arguments become calmer, more grounded, and more resilient, because they are built on understanding rather than stubbornness. Take a breath. Ask the question. Watch how the room changes. And now, let's move into the fifth question, a question that flips the entire conversation inward and exposes the emotional engine driving most arguments. This question is a mirror, a quiet but devastating mirror. Because the moment you ask it, the conversation stops being about you versus them and becomes about the consequences of their thinking. Most arguments fall apart because people defend ideas without ever examining their impact. They argue from emotion, habit, or pride. But when you ask, what happens if everyone thinks like you? You force their belief out of the individual level and into the world. Now they must confront responsibility. They must analyze the ripple effect of their logic. And suddenly, the argument turns philosophical. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself to think in terms of the whole, not just the individual. Your actions, your judgments, your reactions, they influence more than just your own life. This question applies the same Stoic principle to modern conflict. If your mindset became universal, would the world function or fall apart? Someone who argues out of fear will realize how fear would spread if everyone copied their thinking. Someone who argues from anger will recognize that an angry world would destroy itself. Someone who argues from entitlement will see the chaos entitlement creates when multiplied across society. This question doesn't attack them. It simply scales their belief up to 8 billion people and lets reality speak for itself. Most people never think at that scale. They think in terms of me and my situation. But wisdom demands a shift from the self to the collective. It asks you to consider the ethics of your thinking, not just the convenience of it. So when they answer, listen carefully. Their response reveals whether their belief is grounded in principles or impulses. It reveals whether their thinking builds or breaks, heals or harms. And even deeper, this question softens ego. When someone realizes their viewpoint might not work for the world, or even for their own community, their defensive walls begin to drop. They become more open to nuance, more willing to compromise, more capable of growth. This question also works on you. If you ask yourself, what happens if everyone thinks like me? You instantly check your own ego. It holds you accountable. It forces you to evaluate whether your mindset is wise, sustainable, and ethical. Because if your thinking can't scale, it can't stand. So ask this question with calm confidence. The truth it reveals is more powerful than any argument you could make. Now that we've explored all 5 questions, let's bring everything together. The Stoic mindset behind them, the strength they give you, and why asking beats arguing every time. These questions are powerful, powerful enough to expose weak logic, dissolve ego, and redirect an entire conversation. But with power comes responsibility. Socrates wasn't feared because he argued. He was feared because he revealed truth. And truth, in the wrong hands, can become a weapon. So use this method with humility, not dominance. Use it to illuminate, not embarrass. If your goal is to win, you become a manipulator. But if your goal is clarity, for yourself and for others, you become a thinker in the tradition of the Stoics. Hold on to 3 virtues: intellectual humility, genuine curiosity, collaborative thinking, and avoid the 4 traps: pride, hidden insults, endless skepticism, and judgment. Ask to understand, not to conquer. That is how questioning becomes wisdom, not warfare.